Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Israel's new government is taking sharp criticism from the United Nations and the Biden administration, all because an Israeli leader visited the Temple Mount.
Well, the UN called an emergency meeting of the Security Council in response to the incident. A former Israeli ambassador has described that meeting as an act of diplomatic terrorism. Chris Mitchell has the story from Jerusalem.
Incoming National Security Minister Itamar Ben-gvir sparked a meeting when he spent 13 minutes on the Temple Mount, the first visit by an Israeli minister in almost 5 years. During the emergency session in New York, the UN and a parade of nations, including the U.S., criticized Israel for the visit.
Secretary Blinken has said very clearly that it's absolutely critical for all sides to exercise restraint, refrain from provocative actions and rhetoric at the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount and other holy sites in Jerusalem, both in word and in practice. In this spirit, we oppose any and all unilateral actions that depart from the historic status quo, which are unacceptable.
Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, slammed the meeting and said he was shocked.
And why? Because there is absolutely no reason that this emergency session today should be held. None. To hold a Security Council session on a non-event is truly absurd. To claim that this brief and completely legitimate visit should spark an emergency Security Council session is pathetic. Security Council session on what?
Former Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, served 5 years at the UN and told CBN News the Palestinian Authority was behind the emergency meeting.
It's part of the diplomatic terrorism of the Palestinian Authority. You know, they put pressure on the representatives in the Security Council to call for a meeting. They will come, spread lies. No, it's not helping the Palestinians. It's not helping the peace process. It's part of the blame game.
For his part, Itamar Ben-gvir maintained his visit did not violate the status quo on the Temple Mount.
The Temple Mount is open to all. Muslims and Christians come up here, and yes, also Jews. In a government I'm a member of, there will be no discrimination, and Jews will come up and visit the Temple Mount.
After Ben-gvir's visit to the Temple Mount behind me, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a statement saying that the status quo would not change. That's where Israeli police prevent anyone other than Muslims from praying on the Temple Mount out of fear of disturbances. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Imagine, if you will, the UN Security Council meeting because a member of our government actually went to the National Cathedral. That's the equivalent here, that you're saying the Temple Mount cannot be trodden under the foot of the Jews. That's what you're saying. And you have to have an emergency meeting, and our government has to issue some kind of proclamation condemning it. It's blatant discrimination. Jews, Christians, Muslims have a right to the Temple Mount. It is a place for all nations to come and pray, and that's the promise from Almighty God. You find it in the Old Testament, that this is a place of prayer. This is not a place of violence or incitement. It's a place of prayer. All faiths, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, have a right to pray on the Temple Mount. And it's a particular right for the Jewish people, and has been since Abraham and Isaac went there 4,000 years ago. I find it absolutely incredible that a world governing body would object to Jewish people walking anywhere in Jerusalem, or that our own government and our State Department would object to it. This should never be. There should be freedom of worship in Jerusalem, freedom of worship at all the sites. In other news, yesterday, President Biden made his first visit to see the crisis on our southern border. John Jessup has that story and more from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called the president's visit 2 years and $20 billion too late. Biden toured a migrant facility and met with Border Patrol agents at the country's busiest crossing in El Paso. He also made an unannounced stop at the border wall. The visit follows his decision last week to crack down on illegal crossings, a move that will allow up to 30,000 migrants each month from Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela to legally apply for asylum while expelling those who cross illegally. Authorities estimate more than 2.5 million migrants crossed the border illegally last year. Well, a giant of the Christian church has passed into eternity. Jack Hayford died at the age of 88 on Sunday. For more than 30 years, Hayford pastored the Church on the Way, a congregation of the Foursquare denomination in Van Nuys, California. It grew from 20 members to more than 12,000 by the time he passed on the mantle of senior pastor in 1999. Hayford's influence spread worldwide through his Bible teachings and the more than 50 books he authored. He also composed some 500 hymns and choruses, including the popular and much recorded Majesty. In his later years, he devoted his passion to serving as chancellor of the King's University, a Pentecostal seminary he founded in 1997. Foursquare president Randy Remington said Pastor Jack lived a life devoted to Jesus, one which he never wavered in or strayed from. His books, songs, and teachings will continue to inspire and mentor generations to come. A post on the King's University Facebook page said Pastor Jack Hayford died peacefully in his sleep. Plans for his memorial, Gordon, will be released in the coming days.
Well, we're all going to miss Pastor Jack. He was known as a pastor to pastors. He was known as the leading theological voice for the charismatic movement. And for me personally, his Spirit-filled Life Bible is an absolutely wonderful resource for Christians everywhere. That will be a legacy that will live for generations as long as the Lord tarries. Let us look at the legacy that Jack Hayford has left us in this wonderful Bible that we can study and get the original words in Hebrew and Greek. A beautiful concordance. It's a wonderful legacy that he's left us all.